The Trinity of Fundamentals, Chapter 2. A furtive glance from his bedroom window revealed the shadowy figures of soldiers at the main door to the house, retreating only to surge forward again, kicking the door with their boots in an effort to dislocate it. The pagan ritual was beginning. Military vehicles took up positions at the 3 openings to the house, which were clearly visible from Kanan's window. He looked at Hisham, who was standing next to him, also looking out the window. "I think we have fallen, comrade." Thinking out loud, Kanan spoke quickly. "The number of soldiers in the trucks don't give the impression that they are just looking to arrest stone throwers. We won't open the door. Let them open it themselves if they want to come in. I will hurry to the hiding place with my papers, and we'll do what we had agreed earlier. I hope they did not see the 2 of us when we went out on the balcony for reconnaissance." Panting and agitated, his words spilled out rapidly, but they were not confused or hesitant. Rather, they were confident and determined. It seemed like he had long practiced speaking these words, as though he had memorized them. He did not feel any confusion, the natural and human response to an impending danger, a result of human weakness. Instead, he felt bitter and crushed as he addressed Hisham, aware of the ritual the soldiers were conducting at the door. It would cause him great pain to see that door breached, to know that they had defeated him after 9 years. He looked at Hisham as he spoke and saw no sign of confusion. What he saw were the features of a face that was alert, watchful, and waiting. Both of them displayed the composure and self-control of those who had fought many trials, who had not only tested themselves and their strength, but tested others while exploring their potential and limits. The fearlessness of the party, the composure of its organizations and its comrades, is what is needed now to repel the attack on the party. The loss of courage means a loss of balance, which leads to a fall. It means confusion and flailing about. What is destroyed now can be rebuilt even stronger. There is no need to panic. Let us defend the party and ourselves now, and later we will rebuild several times over what was destroyed. Confusion amounts to collapse in the dens of interrogation. Your mission now is to protect yourself. Again, it is to protect yourself. That was what they wrote him in 1985. The year the intelligence services tore apart the party's organizations from Rafah to Kalkilia. The party kept reiterating those words until they were etched into the recesses of his brain, reinforced by the recurring confrontations of the enemy. Kanan quickly picked up his stack of secret papers and a pack of cigarettes from the workbench near his bed. He turned to a familiar location, the large wardrobe against the wall opposite from the bathroom. His training kicked in and he went to work with organized automatic motions. He opened the door of the wardrobe and removed one of the shelves where the bath towels and cleaning equipment were stacked, placing it on the floor. He picked up a small nail which he had put there specifically for this moment and inserted it into a barely visible hole in a movable panel of wood at the back of the wardrobe. He pushed the panel upwards, revealing a cranny in the wall just wide enough for him to pass through. He squeezed through the opening into a small, dark enclosure and quickly replaced the shelf. Extending his arm, he grabbed the wardrobe's door and closed it. He lowered the panel into place, and the enclosure was enveloped in such a thick darkness that he could not even see his hand in front of his face. Kanan crouched motionless at the edge of the crevice, waiting. Hoping for their primitive ritual to end, he listened for what was happening outside and sank into thought. The shadowy figures were still trying to open the door, trying to tear apart his secret life. He hoped that he could escape their grip like he had once done years ago. Anything would be tolerable except if his secret papers fell into their hands. Let them take my life, but not my papers. He clenched them even tighter, as though he were clutching his life in his hands to prevent the enemy from snatching it away, like a mother embracing her sick newborn for fear that death may steal him from her. In the darkness, he fumbled with his fingers to reassure himself that the cigarette lighter and the kerosene tin were there. He had prepared everything according to the ground rules of secrecy that he had grown accustomed to, rules for taking precautions against the unexpected. One of the elementary principles was secret activities and secure communications. He always made arrangements for agreed-upon signals with those coming to the safe house, and he would instruct them on how to knock on the door. His comrades' furtive knocks meant that life was about to enter the house. Everyone coming from the outside carried this pulse of life with them. News of comrades, friends, family, and other people, their lives, local developments, events, even jokes, what people were talking about, discussions, rumors, whatever struck their fancy and occupied their thoughts. He felt that he had a right to this information, insisting on it if a visitor tried to cut the conversation short, as though sharing the information was akin to tearing off a bit of their flesh. Curiosity was his incentive. He did not want to be mentally severed from the events and worries of life even while he was physically estranged from them. He sought to reassure his inner self that he was living with and among people. This was his motivation. He denied many of his self's demands, but he was careful to satisfy this one. Unfortunately, what he was hearing now was not the beloved, planned knocking of his comrades. This time, the knocks were hostile, perhaps a warning of death, evoking a savagery that could tear into his body, torturing him. These knocks were determined, decisive, foreboding, something that could turn his life upside down. It was akin to the daring and decisive decision in the December letter 9 years earlier, a decision that had uprooted him from one life and thrust him into another. The party decided, and he agreed enthusiastically with that decision. This time it was the enemy who would decide the future course of his life. That they, and not he, should make the decision created a lump in his throat and made him feel sick in his heart. A person who has had the power to make their own life-altering decisions for years and years will not accept that others control them without paying the price. That price is their defeat, that he will not allow them to benefit from his arrest. The pounding, growing louder in its force and violence, affirmed their insistence. It signaled their provocation caused by the door's refusal to bend to their will, to be unhinged and opened. He could now also hear familiar noises, the ugly sound of wireless equipment. He wondered anxiously out of a sense of solidarity with his comrade and friend. What is Hisham doing now? No doubt he is monitoring their movements from the windows, having made sure that no papers had been left uncollected. It never crossed Kanan's mind that one day the knocks on the door would bear the foreboding significance that they did now. He had thought about being arrested earlier, and on the instructions of the party had taken a series of precautionary measures. Arrest is almost a foregone conclusion for a resistance fighter. The long years of his life, his strict adherence to the rules of secrecy, his trust in the party, the sternness of those working with him who knew his secret, and the inextricable revolutionary essence of his life. All of these things meant that he felt reassured that nothing could put a limit on his political life. Struggles, experiences, and productivity made him unable to imagine himself living outside the ranks of the party in the struggle. He had experienced a sensory state that imposes a certain type of life on a person, his being, feelings, senses, and the hours of the day. It had molded him. He had experienced it to the extent that he could no longer imagine that his life of resistance. He felt its distinctiveness and solitude with the fullness of his being, a truly unique and revolutionary experience. No doubt the idea of arrest had intruded on his daydreams. How rich are the daydreams of he who lives behind the walls. They became the artery that nourished his spirit, allowing it to resist the petrification of the encircling walls. They were the secret link that connected him to life outside his house. It was a freedom from the mental constraints of a secret life, while remaining steadfast in adherence to it. He experienced the victory of the workers of the world against the false idols of capitalism. He rejoiced when his country was liberated and he began to build socialism under the leadership of his party. He delighted in the companionship of the woman of his dreams. They walked side by side. He joked with her, stole a kiss in a fleeting moment. His life was buoyed by all these optimistic, joyful visions that allowed him to embrace a bright future. In his daydreams, arrest signified resistance and steadfastness. He imagined himself a martyr in the clutches of interrogators. In his mind's eye, he witnessed his funeral procession that transformed into a demonstration while the party praised his resolve and mourned him. These were the internal, personal mobilizations he engaged in while pacing between one wall and the other, or while he sat on the balcony during a summer's night, or while he lay his head on his pillow before he fell asleep. In his daydreams, he was arrested when he walked down a street in disguise, heading to a secret house to meet someone. He imagined himself captured just as he received a letter from an agreed-upon secret source. Despite the richness of his dreams, fertile like the famous red soil of the Bin Amer meadow, none of them included a premonition of the incessant knocking of the past half hour. Just as his secret life had led him to places he could not have fathomed, he felt the beginning of another life approaching. It appeared to him now as if a question mark. For weeks now he had been sounding the depths of his secret life, a life that he could not see, for all that was visible to him was a locked door and deaf walls. He was well aware of the basic value of his life, rebelling against the arrest warrant, continuing the struggle, and not allowing his potential to be locked between prison walls. But wherever he went, there were doors, and when he turned away and averted his gaze, there were walls. It was as though the entire world had been abbreviated into doors and walls, nothing more. This world recurred day after day. Yesterday was like today and tomorrow. This was the situation he had put himself in. What kind of a world was this in which a man wakes up in the morning and does not go out of the house, instead sitting at a table or pacing from wall to wall, afraid to open the door? People woke up in the morning and opened their doors. Some went to school, others to their place of work, another to shop, and yet another to gossip with their neighbor. Canaan was unable to even wish his neighbors good morning. What sort of world was this in which a man lives with no friends, cannot play with a child or sit down with a woman? Oh, to just sit down with a woman! A world where he could not see his family or his relatives, could not converse with anyone. Even a prisoner could do all those things from behind barbed wire when it was time for his periodic visit with his relatives and friends. Who could appreciate the monumental significance of life's ordinariness? Only a person denied the routines of a social existence could assess their cascading significance, feeling a pressing need for them in his being. This floors him, knocks him down daily, hour after hour, minute after minute. Because it was so, he only now began to sense through his skin, with his nerves, the full meaning of that coarse order, blunt and hard as concrete. Do not receive anyone. Do not visit anyone. The result was a sprawling monotony. He paced in the house between the wall and the door, or he lay on the bed or opened a book or watched the street and the neighbors from his window. He cooked his food or listened to the radio or the tape recorder or chewed a piece of bread or darted from one room to the other or concealed himself behind the walls to escape the eyes of the gray-haired hag, Isa, or. His new life antagonized every cell in his body. He was tense, his nerves high-strung, and stretched to the limit. What sort of a sentence is that? How could someone write that? Do they understand what it means in real life when its letters and words are translated into actual reality? Do they know how that order can be implemented in livid hours and minutes? That is not an ordinary sentence. It is a slow death sentence. Man is a social being. How can he retain his humanity if he isolates himself from society and social life? What sort of madman were you to be enthusiastic about that damned order? Do not turn yourself in to the occupation authorities. What party does that to its members? He paced back and forth, posing these questions to himself, and then he sat and he smoked. He did this only to take up pacing once again and throw himself onto the bed while questions tortured the cells of his brain and gushed out of his mouth. Tense and emotional questions, which turned into swear words, spat out at whatever crossed his mind or meets his eyes. He went on like this, like a corn kernel on a hot roof, all day long. His tired nerves spoke and his body sighed from exhaustion. He went on like this, debilitated by his tongue, its rapid words, its cuss words, until he fell asleep, exhausted. Sleep would prove fitful. He twisted and turned, tossed from side to side, until he was so tired that he fell asleep once more, only to wake up a few hours later. His nerves would go through the routine once again, repeating their sharp-tongued sermons. While his tired nerves narrated, his inner self would barricade itself behind its requirements, firing back at him. Overnight, everything was all over. One sentence determined my life, nullified it. It has been decided that you should not turn yourself in. Concentrated, abstract, deaf, judgmental, and dry words. A coarse, commanding sentence that wasted an entire life. Everything is behind me. I do not belong to what it is around me, and it does not belong to me. Did I engage in resistance out of a sense of belonging to doors and walls and utensils and plates? Did I resist only to end up calculating the sound that my urine makes so as not to be detected by Isa? Lonesomeness is killing me. No mother, no brother, no sister, no lover, no friends or acquaintances. How did I leave all that behind? What sort of madman was I? Nothing except these walls and a handful of damned doors. One of them closes, not to open again except for bread deliveries, and then closes again. Prison would be 1,000 times better. I expect to spend 1, maybe 2 years in prison and then come out to engage in resistance once again. That is what everyone does. So what happened to me in this instance? My needs grow and grow until they collide with the walls and bounce back on my chest. My desires grow and grow and are transformed into sharp fangs that tear into my flesh, brain, and blood, transforming into a savage Dracula. If my desires try to sneak out, they encounter a bolted door and a coarse, commanding sentence, and dry, concentrated, deaf, judgmental, abstract words which kick my desires in the rear. It is this secret life which transforms my needs and desires into impossibilities, but in a normal life they would be quite ordinary and possible. In fact, they would be achieved. Between the anxiety attack and the shriek of his inner self in his throat, his mind would intervene with a wise and balanced opinion. Bear up, Canaan, endure. If it is your duty to become acquainted with this house and life, then do it and endure. Your party and your experience make you a revolutionary. Can that be done without sacrifice? Bear up, then. Being revolutionary requires certain things, so do them. Show tolerance. Have you not read about the lives of great revolutionaries? What have you offered so far compared to them? What have you contributed compared to those who fought for the revolution in Lebanon, who include warriors from your own party? Are you not convinced that the hardened revolutionary will lay down his life for the sake of the revolution? He will contribute something much more valuable than the hours you spend prattling? Tolerate it and then let experience mold you into a hardened revolutionary. You are committed to the revolution, so be a man and pay the price without being frivolous. The revolution changes you, so help it do so by accommodating yourself to its logic. Don't allow your nerves to turn you into a counter-revolutionary, a knife that stabs you in the back. There is a struggle between reason and taut nerves. Each side stood behind its fortified position and aimed its rifle at the other. Each fought desperately, but could not kill the other. Even at this level of the conflict, His nerves had the upper hand and his inner self was dominant. Yet the mind was not defeated. The mind had its moments, but the tiring and vacillating inner self had its hours and days and weeks, for its needs were dictated by human nature, and those needs are satisfied for everyone who can walk upright and is able to use speech and abstraction. The mind, on the other hand, relied on conviction, which is shaken on many occasions as a result of the lack of experience and the cruelty of variables. He could hear the nerves of his inner self yelling at him, so he took tired steps from wall to wall, swaying like a drunkard, with a lit cigarette forever dangling between his lips. He used to smoke 3 packs a day, so that he was like the smokestack of a train, which stopped emitting smoke only when its wheels came to a standstill, and he fell asleep. The struggle is between the demands of the I, which has its needs and desires, and the we, which presents its own demands. The cursed I is incapable of anything. The secret existence dwarfs its needs to the lowest level possible, food and drink. The we had a long list of demands which were even greater than those of the I, and quite numerous. They were endless and required his endless giving. The weeks marched on and turned into months, and the occupiers never give up the pursuit.